to the very first NKATA Umuibe of 2020.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Okibo. They say I'm the chairman of the board of Center for Memories. In a little bit, I'll invite the chairman of Enugu Sports Club, our hosts, to formally welcome us. But permit me to use this opportunity as we wait for him to arrive to tell you a little bit about the Center for Memories and also about NKATA Umuibe. Center for Memories was started in December 2017. The idea behind it is to create a place, a hub, a repository of Igbo memories, culture, traditions, history, but a place that will tell us who we are, that would help us look back at where we've been, and also point in a direction where we should be going. We have a number of initiatives. NKATA Umuibe holds every first Friday of the month. We have for adults, we have a version for the younger ones. We call it Nzuko Umuaka. They convene at the center. The center is at number 2 Ogwu Street, off Umoji Street in Independence Layout. Every quarter, we have an exhibition at the center, and we've had exhibitions on a number of topics. And interestingly, we have an exhibition that opened today. The theme of this exhibition is Ozemena, and it's on the memories of the Civil War, because 50 years ago to January 15th, the war ended, and it's an incredible exhibition. It opened this morning for children, so we had a lot of children from secondary schools, come to see the exhibition, and it's opening tomorrow at 2 p.m. for adults. So please join us at the opening of that exhibition. We've put in a lot of work into it, and I think you'd enjoy it. Also on Sunday, we'll be showing a documentary that we put together. The title of the documentary is January 15, 1970, Untold Memories of the Nigeria-Biafra Civil War. You may want to do yourself a favor to see that documentary because it's very impactful. I saw it for the first time on Thursday, and if it doesn't move you to tears, or if it doesn't get you thinking deeply about who we are as a people, I'd like to know. The film will show at Oakland Hotel and Park. It's at the Tunnel Crossing here in GRA. It will start at 3 p.m. Please endeavor to be there and to bring family and friends. I think kids can come, but definitely kids over 13, because there are some scenes that are not appropriate for kids younger. On that note, permit me to invite the chairman of Enugu Sports Club, Honorable Onyeka Onwe, to formally welcome everyone to the February NKATA Umuibe. Please, a round of applause for him.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first NKATA Umuibe for the year 2020. And I'm glad to welcome each and every one of you to this occasion. Before we start, permit me to welcome one or two people. Everybody here is very important. Permit me to mention one or two people who is in our midst today. May I welcome the Secretary of Enugu Sports Club, Retired Pansec Imabo. Also, the media secretary is here, Ebert Mbelo. We have the immediate past chairman of Enugu Sports Club, the man who handed over to me, Chief Ben Etiaba, and the beautiful wife, Dr. Enyi Etiaba. Emeka Azie, you are welcome to Katumibe. Obuehi Malife, you are welcome. Patrick Okibo for leadership of Center for Memory. You are welcome. Ezueke Edi Okoro, onye ihe Igbo na-amasị, ana m asị gị nnọọ. Biko, ana m ekene onye ọbụla, ọgba akpọrọ afa gị ma ma akpọrọ afa gị, ana m asị unu nnọọ na nkata ụmụ Igbo. Nnekwe n'anya onye nọ tata, ọkwanụ nwa afọ nke anyị maara amalụ, bụkwa na onye nọ n'Enugu steeti anyị maara ọfụma. Ọkwa ya na-agba agwa anyị okwu tata. Nnekwe anyị mana onwego ndị bịanụ, ndị dịka nna ya Nwodo abịagogwa anyị okwu ebe a, ihe dịka Frank Nweke Junior abịagokwa anyị okwu, ndị ọtụtụ abịagokwa anyị okwu, bụ ndị ihe onwe ihe dị iche na nkata ụmụ Igbo. Ọ na-abịa okwu ha anya asị, majority of them ga-asị gị na ha si n'Enugu, na ha si n'Enugu wee too, ha na-echeta gị mgbe ha nọ n'Enugu. Tata anyị nwekwara onye nọ n'Enugu ọzọ, maka ọ bụla m ga-akọwa ya, ihe m bịara ebe a bụ isi unu nnọọ. Mgbe a ga-akọwa ya ọfụma, ọnụ ga-ama onye a na-ekwu. Mana tupu ọ na-abịa, biko ana m asị Kingsley Eze nnọọ na nkata ụmụ Igbo. Ọkwanụ chief ka ọ bụ utu onye nwa Chinemelụ. Biko ndị be anyị nnọọ. Engineer Fodile of Captain of the Gulf Section, ya na kene mmadụ, biko ana m ekene unu. Ndị be anyị nnọọ. Ihe a bịakwa tata maka ịkpa tata, maka ọ bụ na akpala taa ya ma maka echi ga-asị. Ihe a nọ taa maka taa, ya na nya na echi. Ana m asị unu nnọọ na Enugu Sports Club, nnọọ na nkata ụmụ Igbo. Daalụnụ.
Please, another round of applause for the chairman. Like he started saying, Nkatumibe has been going on for a very long time, and then we get a number of people who've come through, to speak to us. Professors Chidi Odinkalo, Oken Dibe, Nyangodo, Dike Chukwumerije, and so on, Chiko Doa, and so on and so forth. But today we're very pleased to have a gentleman we are all very proud of as the speaker for today's Nkatumibe. The theme is ACO, RUO, Building a Startup Nation. Our speaker is Kingsley Eze. In 2008, about 11 years ago, Kingsley decided to start a software company, Tenece. And the logical thing to do at the time would have been to set up the company in Lagos. Why? Because it's in Lagos that you have all the big technology users, the oil companies, the banks, and so on. But he did a very contrarian thing. He decided to set up in Enugu. Now, the Enugu of 2020 is not the Enugu of 2008. Because at the time, there wasn't a lot of business, as we see it today in Enugu. So it'll be interesting to understand why he chose to locate in Enugu, because that's the story, that's the argument we've been trying to make with a lot of people, including myself, to locate our businesses in Enugu. So from here, from this Enugu, he's built what has become arguably the #1 technology development firm in Nigeria. #1 in terms of revenue, in terms of number and quality of clients. The firm has at least 3 offices around Nigeria and is in 5 countries around the world. Has over 400 people working for him. Most of them are here in Enugu. The fact that he set up Tenece in Enugu led to him starting Genesis Tech Hub, which is, again, arguably the biggest tech incubation center in Nigeria. At least that is what the vice president of Nigeria said when he visited Enugu. I think that deserves a round of applause. I would leave him to share his message with us, but I'm very excited to be introducing him for a number of reasons. Kingsley and I go way back, way back. We will probably talk about it a little bit. But just to say that before his neck became this fat, our necks were tinier. When I was best man at his wedding. So we go way back. So it's been a joy and pleasure watching his life story, somewhat as an active participant. So I look forward to what he's going to share with us today. So please join me as I welcome Kingsley Eze.
None. I welcome all of you to this month's series of this month's edition of NKATA Umibe series. Patrick and I really go way back. You know, like we say, the only thing we don't share is Awele and Lena. And we've not figured out how to do that. So, okay. I'm very happy to be here today to share our story with all of us. It's one of those things you do and you don't even know how you started it, but you just realize that you start doing it and it seems like it's working. You go through ups and downs, but when you plot your trajectory, you see some sort of, you know, positive trend. I think that's the only way I can describe our journey. Early this year, when I agreed with Patrick and Nana to open NKATA Umibe 2020 and speak on Akuluno, building a startup nation, I had a slightly diminished impression of the scope of the topic until early this week when I started putting down what I believe will be a meaningful discussion with the audience. The past 11 years has been packed for us. Our story is an aggregate of the different experiences and lessons we've gained, with each one of them substantial enough to stand alone as a topic for this session. Quite frankly, my presentation could have focused on any of the following areas and still get the audience sufficiently excited. We could discuss a chronicle of the entrepreneurship journey of the Igbos, starting a new business during a global recession. Recall the global recession of 2008? That was when we started. Starting a new business with zero equity or debt investment. How to discover, attract, and retain the best talents in a market where such talents are limited, and the established players, including the banks, the oil and gas firms, and the blue chip companies with deep pockets are obviously more attractive to potential hires. How to create enough excitement for exceptional talent in a not so vibrant town like Enugu versus Lagos, which is our economic capital. How to build in less than 10 years a business group with significant interest in information technology, real estate, fast-moving consumer products, entertainment, oil and gas engineering services, and manufacturing. How we established operations in 3 locations in Nigeria and 5 countries in just about 10 years. How we built a highly motivated team of a little under 400 people, with every single one of them keenly committed to the vision. How we built Genesis Tech Hub, which was adjudged by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, when he visited the hub, as the biggest he has seen in the country, and have trained 1,800 tech enthusiasts, supported over 300 startups, and incubated and funded 8 tech startups. While we launched from Enugu, concentrated most of our innovation assets and key strategic capabilities in Enugu, while still maintaining a world-class corporate culture and professionalism, which has earned us several global, regional, and national awards for excellence. The joy, challenges, and lessons learned from our journey so far. Undoubtedly, the 20-25 minutes presentation, we're going to have this evening will only allow me highlight what I'll consider, the broad strokes of our experience and journey. The people and economy of the Southeast. In the beginning, before the first white men docked ships at our shores, before they signed treaties with the Obas in Lagos and the Emirs in the north, before Frederick Lugard amalgamated the northern and southern protectorates, the Igbos were known for their resilience, entrepreneurial spirit, and sojourning abilities. When the colonial masters introduced formal education, Ndị Igbo had the shortest end of the stick. The white men experienced difficulties in setting up a structured government in the southern part of Nigeria. This in turn made it difficult to provide the sweet parts of civilization, which are essentially education and enlightenment. While indirect rule worked in the north and west because of the hegemonies that existed before, it could not work down south because the Igbos had a more republican society and did not believe in centralized leadership. It became surprising that in the 1950s, the Igbos had superseded our brothers in other regions in the educational ranking. The late Chinua Achebe pointed out in his groundbreaking novel, There Was a Country, that at the time of independence, Ndị Igbo had the highest number of people with formal education, the highest number of people in government management, the highest number of professionals in the country. Our success as Ndị Igbo was not limited to education and government, but also in business and entrepreneurship. Ndị Igbo have always had excellent acumen in business, trade, and commerce. This flair for entrepreneurship expressed itself in the largely successful and genuinely wealthy businesses and businessmen that originated from Ali Igbo. We had the likes of Sir Louis Odumegwu Ojukwu, who was acclaimed as the wealthiest businessman in West Africa in his time. In the era of independence, Nigeria operated a regional government structure. We had the northern, eastern, and western regional governments. Each regional government had its premier and development strategy. The sense of identity was regional. Each government wanted to see its region outperform other regions in all the metrics of economic development. Governments invested heavily in agriculture as each region had agricultural produce for which they were known. The north was known for groundnut production, the west for cocoa production, and the east for palm production. The proceeds from agriculture funded educational and infrastructural development. This regional structure that heavily encouraged an organic and sustainable growth model was characterized by healthy rivalry, shared identities, and collective vision of the various regions. The Igbo economy, like most economies around the world, started as a local phenomenon. Local trade served the commercial interests of contiguous communities and dealt principally on food items, as well as other locally produced items. The economy was organized in three major sectors: agricultural, non-agricultural, and trade sectors. All these sectors prospered in the pre-colonial period, taking care of the needs of the people at the local, village group, and regional levels. The non-agricultural sector involved several local industries and crafts, which included pottery, salt making, smoldering, sleeping mat making, sculpture, wine tapping, cloth weaving, fish smoking, and amongst others. These industries flourished in Igbo land in the pre-colonial era, even part of the colonial period. The ingenuity of the Igbo people and the manner in which they worked and controlled the economy was striking and always captured the attention of strangers. Even colonialists were charmed by the charisma of the Igbo people. For instance, Hugh Crow, a renowned English ship captain, made the following statement: "The Igbos are well-formed people of middle stature. Many of their women are remarkably symmetrical in shape." Okwa. So, remarkably symmetrical in shape. And if white, would in Europe be deemed beautiful. Indeed, our women are beautiful. This race is of a more mild and engaging disposition than the other tribes. They are preferred in the West India colonies for their fidelity and utility, particularly if taken there when young, as they then become the most industrious of the tribes in the colonies. The economic development of Eastern Nigeria was palpable to such extent that the region was reported as the fastest growing and industrializing economy in the world, ahead of countries like Malaysia, Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. Underlying the Eastern Nigeria plan and strides was a people with a traditional worldview worth a second mention. Their leadership and ecosystem perpetuated such powerfully transforming virtues as Akalaka, Nkanozo, Ogugu, Uchu, Eguchukwu, Imuolu, Akonuche, Ofo, Akoru, Uguna Nsọpụrụ, Ngozi, Ikwu na Ibe, Igwebuike, Mmaduka, Mmaduka eji aka, Akụ ruo ụlọ. Interestingly, many of these virtues are the same shared by many startup nations like Israel, Malaysia, and Singapore. And I think that explains a lot about the success attained by those countries. Post-Civil War Igbo economy. At the end of the Civil War, Igbo land was smitten with abject poverty. It was visible and prevalent across every part of the East. The conditions which Biafrans fought the war, the heavy support given to the Nigerian federal government by foreign powers made the Biafrans go through the worst experience throughout the war. Also, the total blockade of the Biafran territory was of grave consequences to the people and consequently unleashed poverty, hunger, untold hardship on the people. In addition to the loss of businesses and properties, many Igbo people were permanently removed from government services. There was a kind of conspiracy to forestall the economic emancipation of the Igbos deliberately. For instance, the idea of 20 pounds policy introduced by the federal government of Nigeria further compounded the agonies of the post-war era for the Igbo. The policy entailed that all Igbos who had deposits in banks were given a paltry 20 pounds, irrespective of the amount they deposited. This policy played a very devastating role in the post-war economy of Igbo. It made it difficult for people to start businesses of their own since they had no capital. Another policy was the Nigerian Enterprise Promotion Decree of 1972, also known as the Indigenization Decree. The decree allowed Nigerians to acquire stakes in some choice blue chip companies. The timing of this policy was just after the Civil War and ensured that the Igbo people were not able to participate since they were left with their meager 20 pounds. The people were left with nothing except their God-given talent, and they did utilize it. Young men began to render services and learn trades from financially established ones. The reality of this period further entrenched the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, a venture development scheme that has captured the attention of scholars globally. The people struggled hard to better their economic condition rather than bemoaning their pitiable economic plight. It was these efforts that enabled the Igbo people to cope with the difficulties of the post-war era. A majority of families had at least one person in the apprenticeship program. It didn't take long before the benefits began to show. Families began to gain support, especially after the settlement of their young apprentice. This concept, the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, which started to gain prominence after the war, is today acclaimed as the largest incubator network in the world. As a matter of fact, Harvard actually did an interesting study on the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, and they said that no venture program like that has brought out a lot of people out of poverty like the Igbo apprenticeship scheme. The concept of the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, a great spirit of solidarity, Igwebike, thrived among the Igbo people. Honestly, no human would experience such hardship and not develop substantive empathy for his neighbor. This resulted in the formation of various clubs and town unions whose ultimate aim was to uplift their people. A migrating nation. The Igbo people had a history of migration even before the Civil War. This migration involved productive interaction with other groups and continued even after 1970. Even though they faced resentment as a result of their seemingly monopolization of certain trades, the Igbo people exhibited highly integrative strategies which helped them coexist with other ethnic groups. The industrial dynamism of the Igbo people is not organized with a limited outlook, but involved a widely developed network of different ethnic groups, traders from other parts of Africa, and even as far away as East Asia. All these are done without the assistance of the state. All students of history can testify that the commercial development of southeastern Nigeria occurred with the little dependence on state structures or ethnographic considerations. It was economics, not ethnicity, trade, not rulers, which governed the main lines of the region's pre-colonial past. The Igbo Diaspora Network created a network of Igbo inhabitants in nearly every corner of Nigeria. In 1911, 291 Igbo people were enumerated in Lagos. This figure has risen to about 32,000 by 1953. About 167,000 Igbos were already living in northern Nigeria by the 1950s. The Igbo people obviously became the southern ethnic group with the highest population in the northern region. During this same period, the Igbo people also showed a significant presence in cities like Ibadan, Zaria, Lafia, Maiduguri, Gusau, Kafanchan, and Makurdi. The records of the 1953 census revealed that 15% of the Igbo population lived outside Igbo land. Thus, the Igbo people became the largest migrant group in Nigeria. It is interesting to note that 5 prominent Igbo political figures of the 1950s and 1960s were all either born or raised in northern Nigeria. In Kanu, for example, the area called Sabongeri became a replica of Onitsha in today's Anambra State. Also in Kaduna South, a place called Television Garage was like an Igbo city. This also applied to other cities across Nigeria. They took advantage of the opportunity and established their business empires all over Nigeria. The Enugu Road of Kaduna State was like an extension of southeastern Nigeria due to the concentration of the Igbos in that area. It is interesting, however, that the Igbo pattern of migration did not rupture the linkages between migrants and their homes. There were traditional institutions that ensured that migrants kept touch by observing annual returns to their communities. An Igbo man is not truly regarded to have acquired wealth if his kinsmen cannot testify to the impact of his wealth at home, which we know as Akulono. Many diaspora associations of Igbo people widely adopted this ideology and would always have the phrase, "Remember home," featured in their mantra. Consequently, many Igbo communities have in their calendar at least one tradition that obligates all members of the community to return home once in a year. This same ideology also drives the mass return of Igbos from all parts of the world during August meetings and Christmas celebrations. This migrating pattern of trade was also a strategy for checking oversupply of local markets, as newly settled apprentices were encouraged to go to distant locations to establish their trade. Traditional Igbo values as a blueprint for community building. The traditional Igbo community is built on values that determine behaviors, considered as legitimate or illegitimate. The Igbo values emphasize community building. Therefore, we have prominent Igbo ideologies like Akulono, Umunna Nwezuako, Igbambo, Igwebike, Nwanne de Namba, Onyaga na Nwanne ya, Nwanne Bike, to mention but a few. These values in totality promote the Igbo spirit of self-help, self-enterprise, hard work, and excellence. They also promote a sense of reasonability, a sense of responsibility to community and comradeship, respect and care for one's relations and neighbors. Deviants are regarded as efulefu people who have no sense of responsibility, direction, and purpose in life. And nobody really wanted to be regarded as an efulefu. In recent years, these traditionally held values have experienced rapid declines. Unfortunately, this decline is evident in the pattern of lives of the new generation Igbos, and even reflects in our lexicon. Now we have words like Egombute, Igbozu, and Ibutike. So some of our friends go to my man's place, Odumeje, liquid metal. Ijebutike. Only time will tell. These words and the ideologies behind them are corrupt forms of the traditional Igbo values. They look like what our values represent, but they are not. This shift in cultural values can be attributed to the mass adulteration of Igbo value system, a misrepresentation of Igbo values, and in some cases, an outright adoption of values that were not originally of Igbo descent. We must not forget that a people who cannot stand for something will fall for anything. As a result of this value erosion, the Igbo people are widely perceived as unreliable, possessing high fraudulent tendencies, as a people that could do anything for money. The Igbo traditional values indeed uphold achievement and success, but it also emphasizes hard work and abhors crime and fraud. And that the original Igbo man prides in his results born out of hard work, not fraud. People are rewarded and recognized in Igbo society for their accomplishments, which translates to a greater good for the whole society, not for selfish ambitions or ill-gotten wealth. Our people need to have a rethink. The corruption in values seems to reflect a people whose mindsets have gone beyond the pursuit of needs at the base of pyramid in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Struggling only to keep up with food to eat, clothes to wear, shelter over their heads, even when indeed they have attained enough success to move up the pyramid mentally. I mean, if you recall the Maslow's pyramid, where at the base of the pyramid, you have the basic needs of man, food, shelter, sex. And then it begins to go up. So it's expected that as people move on, they begin to seek more self-actualization values. But it seems like for our people, what happens is that, more money pushes for more money. And they are seeking to get that money so that they can eat more food, buy more cars, build more houses, oppress everybody around them, and not to use it to seek self-actualization, which is actually the realm when you begin to live for other people. Our values are the building blocks of our society. Therefore, we must strive to erect an Igbo society built with strong blocks of truth, trust, integrity, hard work, excellence, resilience, and self-belief. To think or do otherwise is to risk a total collapse of the Igbo nation. Second, we must make a conscious effort to invest in our communities. The second is actually intertwined with the first because the effect of the depletion of Igbo value system is the lack of sense of responsibility to build at home. So you become despondent. What am I going to build? What am I going home to build? It is well understood that business decisions must be driven by economic reward and not sentiments or emotions. But a more long-term perspective by Igbos investing and building the Southeast will eventually generate the needed critical mass to make the region economically viable. Those who conduct knowledge-based businesses such as information technology, products, services that require human capital should take the lead. So there are two ways to look at it. One way is to say, oh, nothing is happening in the Southeast, so I will not invest in the Southeast. The other way is to also say, nothing is happening in the Southeast, let's go and invest in the Southeast. And that essentially will build the critical mass to make the Southeast, economically viable. Our journey so far, the journey of Tenece. Tenece Professional Services Limited, our flagship business, was established in 2008. Our objective then was to build a world-class enterprise transformation and technology consulting services firm focused on using technology to support organizations, optimize their functions, and achieve their strategic objectives. From inception, we had an audacious vision of making our mark in the industry. So we set out to differentiate ourselves from the rest of the pack through excellent service quality and high professional disposition. I was quite lucky to have received excellent professional grooming from my consulting and professional services background. I was exposed to global best practices for talent development and management. My previous career experience offered me good insight on the importance of skill, knowledge, and objective performance management in building a successful enterprise, particularly in this century when data is the new gold. And the workforce comprises mostly of millennials and Generation Z, the demographic cohorts succeeding the millennials. Time will not permit me to delve into details of these very idealistic and pragmatic generations. But our parents will be very glad that they did not have to raise them. My mom would have preferred my simple ECK to the overwhelming sense of independence of this generation. You know, I don't know if you know about the millennials and the Generation Z. Their sense of entitlement, their sense of independence, they argue everything. They have an idea of how they want it done. And they would have given our parents high blood pressure. I have a short story I would like to share. You know, one of us, a very prominent son of this state, he called me sometime last year. And I went to see him in his house. So when I came, I saw him, Kingsley. I was almost at that point. In fact, on a police station. But what happened? This boy joined the Tennessee Genesis Hub program and turns out a fantastic guy. Arguably one of our best guys. In fact, after the program, he stayed back in Tennessee. But what really happened was that the father didn't understand how to deal with millennials. Because they are a completely different set of people. And by understanding them, understanding how to deal with them, you actually make the most out of them. So, they challenge everything, they loathe being regimented. So how do you bring about a corporate order and get such characters to align towards a shared vision or purpose? Very challenging. While my experiences prepared me adequately to be a professional, I wouldn't be quick to say that we were very completely prepared for what lay ahead. However, by evolving and sticking to a set of core values that encapsulate our aspirations and some simple life principles that seek goodness, we have synthesized an unusual bond and culture that set us apart. We hope someday to be remembered for championing a benign variant of capitalism, conveying the Igbo philosophy of Onyaga na Nwanne. Our beginning was as simple as it can get. We had zero funding, no office space, no connection, no man knows anybody. All we had was faith, right people, vision, and some genuine contentment with our current situation, while aspiring for a more glorious future. We started operations from the BQ of my residence in Lekki, Lagos at that time. That was where our first set of Lagos team resumed. I recall those early stages. Everything was like an experiment, very amorphous, without form. Besides the few technical hands we had then, every other person, including myself, was utility resource, functioning both as business development person, admin person, finance person, drivers, security man, everything. Everybody did everything. Everybody did everything. We focused on IT services. We focused on services, IT advisory and software development, since we lacked the deep pocket needed to play in the infrastructure space. We positioned to solve the mid-tier problems, the middle of the bell curve, where IT managers face steady diet of technology upgrades, application rollouts, and business problems that require resources beyond their own. The banks, telcos, oil and gas companies have a raging appetite for automation as they push for increased efficiency. So we gave those verticals proper attention. The ever-increasing demand for sophistication compelled us to grow our technical competence steadily. They essentially forced us to develop, steadily. They also maintained quite a decent annual IT budget, so they were really worth our time. The public sector and academia were attractive low-hanging fruits, but with almost zero IT budget. However, we leveraged them to build our managed services practice. So we had to evolve a different kind of strategy to address, the academia and the public sector, and it paid off for everybody. Homecoming. Professional services practice uses intellectual capital to create value. It is therefore quite resource intensive. Professional services organizations that thrive are those with the structure and means to attract, build, and retain quality talents. We realized quite early that deliberate talent planning is critical for our success. At its core, talent planning is an overarching strategy that encompasses how an organization plans for having the talent it needs in critical positions, both today and in future. The top 3 challenges firms face in acquiring talent include: 1, the availability of good candidates in the marketplace; 2, matching qualified candidates to open positions; and 3, aligning acquisition goals with the strategic objectives of the company. One of our first challenges was the high attrition rate of our technical resources. We were losing our skilled hands faster than we could replace them to banks and other industries with deeper pockets and more attractive remuneration. Lagos is a very sophisticated and highly competitive market. Skilled resources are quite expensive, very volatile, and rarely offer long-term commitments. We figured that we had to think differently to win the war for talent. The Southeast is the leading source of human capital that serves the Lagos market, probably after the Southwest. With over 40 tertiary institutions, the Southeast is home to an army of young people, very cosmopolitan, very self-aware population. So in reality, the biggest resource we have in the Southeast is not in any material resource, but actually in our people, our young people. Therefore, we paid a great deal of attention to developing our talent base in Enugu. We started hiring young talents and gave them the opportunity to grow and learn on the job. The result was tremendous, but attrition was still a big challenge. With the experience they gained, our young talents were always quick to jump to a better paying job from the telcos and other big corporations. This challenge made us delve deeper into how to tackle the lack of technology talent in Enugu and the Southeast as a whole. It was at this point that we began to nurture the idea of building a tech hub that will groom tech talent in the Southeast and also supply to other parts of the country. This is how Genesis Tech Hub started. Genesis Tech Hub, an idea, creativity, and knowledge-based platform, is a people and business capacity development initiative designed to drive innovation, productivity, and economic output in Nigeria. The hub, which is acclaimed the largest in the country, has so far through its initiatives harnessed young tech talents in the Southeast. In the past 5 years, we have been consciously building capacity by training young tech enthusiasts and supporting young entrepreneurs with tech-based business ideas. In this regard, we have graduated over 300 young software developers, trained over 1,800 tech enthusiasts, and funded 8 startups and supported over 145 SME. As a matter of fact, as of last year, we were giving minimum of $15,000 as early stage seed fund to the business ideas that we support. We don't just stop there. We also provide an office space for them and also provide them what they call incubation support, where we give them access to experienced hands who essentially handhold them in developing their business ideas. Presently, we have people from different parts of the world participating in activities of Genesis Tech Hub here in Enugu. For some of these people, it is their first time coming to this part of the world and experiencing the Igbo environment, people, and culture. Through this opportunity, they have been able to create their personal views about the Igbo people beyond the single stories and stereotypes. A typical example is a gentleman named Sadiq, a young undergraduate from Bauchi State, who was part of our 2019 internship program. Just like every other intern, Sadiq was awed by the experience at Genesis. But one thing stood out. According to Sadiq, the Igbo people are so nice and accommodating. I never thought I could trust any Igbo person until I came here. I have always perceived them in the wrong manner. Sadiq's story shows how far we can go in changing people's views about us by building our place and attracting them. There is no other better way of telling the undiluted version of our story as a people than getting people from other parts of our land to visit, giving them a first-hand experience of who we are and what we represent. Is Nasiru here? Is Nasiru in the hall? Nasiru, can you stand up and wave? So Nasiru is my colleague. Nasiru was in our Lagos office. Later he moved to our Abuja office. On his own, he said he wanted to come to the Enugu office. He's been in the Enugu office for like 2 years now. In fact, he's running a postgraduate program in UNEC. He's not planning to go back anywhere. He likes here. But I'm sure if he didn't come here, he possibly wouldn't have had the experience he has today about the Southeast. So, why not Enugu? At a time when my friend, myself and my brother Patrick were conceiving Enugu Lifestyle and Gulf City project, we traveled around the world looking for partners that were going to come and do the project with us. We had very interesting experiences. I remember when we went to Dubai, we met his friend, I think Slim, that works for JLL. Good. So we went to Dubai to meet Slim, to pitch the idea of Slim coming, getting JLL, Jones Langs LaSalle, am I right? One of the biggest real estate development companies in America, to come and be our development partner in Enugu. So they took us to one of their sites in Dubai. On that site, they had moved the crane to the 40th floor. When you're building, they have moved the crane. So it gives you an idea of how high they were still going. So we changed our discussion and told him we came to get ideas. We respected ourselves. But an interesting thing, which is why I shared that story, those days when we told people we are coming to do a project like this in Enugu, and I'm talking about Igbos, they will say, why Enugu? And Patrick will always say, why not Enugu? And, we realize that when you give them that, counter question, you throw them back. So the next part of my discussion, I titled it, why not Enugu? Why won't businesses come to Enugu? What is it about Enugu or Southeast? Enugu here I will use interchangeably with Southeast. And I have some facts. One, unlimited access to young, brilliant talents. We leased an office space in Victoria Island, Lagos, barely a year after we started operations. However, we had no compelling need to set up our Lagos office because we set up our primary operations in Enugu. It eventually took us over 2 years to get our Lagos office fully functional. Unlimited access to trainable human capital was critical to our success, and Enugu offered this core asset in abundance. 2, novelty. For all of us at Tenece Group, including non-Igbos and even foreigners. By the way, 2 years ago, we had our end-of-year retreat in Enugu. So our colleagues from all over the world were here. We're all in Enugu. I wish we had the slides. I was going to show you pictures of people from Ethiopia, people from India, from Kenya, from all parts of the world, assembled here in Enugu. We were at Nike Lake, and the people who were in Nike Lake at that period knew something was happening. Those guys left with their own impression of Enugu and the Southeast. Thank you. So for all of us at Tenece, including non-Igbos, even foreigners, and even foreigners, setting up in Enugu goes beyond a strategic business decision. It is consistent with our quest for novelty, which is one of our core values. In all we do, we seek to be original. We don't follow the crowd. We love to do things differently. In dealing with tasks and responsibilities, we seek new courses of action by thinking outside the box. We crave and encourage creativity and believe that it is possible. We think this positive disposition energizes our people and propels us to undertake heavy liftings that seemed impossible and unusual. In our 11 years of existence, we have undertaken projects and endeavors that will easily break the back of most organizations our size and age. 3, alternative role models for value change. In the course of working and spending considerable time in Enugu, we have gained a lot of insight into some socio-cultural alterations that are occurring in Southeast. Our future will be better secured if substantial effort is dedicated to value realignment, even if we pursue economic emancipation. Social or cultural norms and values are an essential part of our society because they develop our personalities. Norms determine what is right and wrong in the eyes of others, what behaviors are shunned and discouraged, and what the consequences for good and bad behaviors are. Establishing and adhering to them will frame us to be useful persons in our society. Ignoring them will taint our culture and degrade our society. What we are doing at Tenece transcends building a business in Enugu. We are grooming a generation of young men and women that will be responsible, skilled, enterprising, fun-loving, and morally sound. The mass emigration of most of our decent and best minds to other cities and countries that offer better opportunities depletes the Southeast of the much-needed role models, exposing our young population to the disempowering dominance resulting from wrong values. Virtues such as trust, patience, diligence, tolerance, love for one another, and honesty have all been replaced by treachery, betrayal, hate, greed, intolerance, and dissatisfaction. Most of our young population will do the absurd to make quick money. Fraud has become so commonplace that 419 or Yahoo is considered acceptable career in some quarters. Those who think fraud too extreme to aspire join politics. New terms like egombute, like I said before, recently entered our lexicon, indicating how deeply the damaging norms and values have permeated our society. A young population with such impaired ideologies cannot deliver the Southeast of the future. So we must all work consciously to create a new set of role models that will influence our young population positively. Of all the things we do at Tenece, I find my greatest joy in the set of values and culture we have established. My colleagues are proper and very driven. They understand that there is no shortcut to success. We have all grown to find so much fun in the work we do. We deliberately created for ourselves an office environment that allows work and social life exist as a pair, so work becomes fun. We work hard and we party hard too. And I promise you, we play hard, we enjoy ourselves. No one in my team will find 419 attractive, none. Our senior colleagues attend compulsory education training programs in the best business schools in the world, including Harvard, INSEAD, London Business School, and MIT. They have all become positive influences and role models in our society. What we are building is actually a global organization, even though we have a local flavor to it. 4, sustainable development. An economic development model that concentrates key development capabilities in a particular city or state is not sustainable. Lagos is caving in under the weight of its vast population. According to UN statistics for 2016, there is an influx of 87 people per hour daily into Lagos. That gives you like 1 million people every year. And this is the largest in the world. This trend has given rise to a lot of socioeconomic challenges that successive governments of Lagos State have been battling to contain. Lagos Bureau of Statistics has projected 35 million people by 2020. This will be a disaster of monumental proportion. This trend is not peculiar to Lagos. At the turn of the millennium, and for the first time in human history, about half of the world's population began to live not just in cities, but in megacities. A megacity, by definition, is a continuous urbanized area with population of at least 10 million people, according to UN. In this league of cities are cities like Tokyo, New York City, Mexico, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Delhi, Shanghai, and Los Angeles. The largest cities appear to have been growing at the most rapid rate, a phenomenon which has given rise to a concept of urban primacy, the demographic, economic, and social and political dominance of one city over all others within an urban system. This is what Lagos has become. Initially, we were worried about how the banks and the telcos and the oil companies were taking our people. But last year, we encountered a different challenge. Tertiary institutions from Europe. Last year alone, we lost 2 of our best hands to 2 universities in Germany. They got full scholarship. I had to tell him, dude, it's your problem. I can't help you, But the reality is that I told him that this is something we've agreed is our plight. But the good thing is that we have built a solid base, a solid pipeline that will continue to churn out a lot of skills, a lot of young people that will replace the ones that are going. But the truth is that it's very challenging, and it's a real challenge. So we responded to this by establishing scholarship schemes in most tertiary institutions in the Southeast. At the time we started, we had scholarship schemes running in almost all the tertiary institutions in the Southeast, established by Tenece. Most of our colleagues today are beneficiaries of our scholarship program. The Genesis Tech Hub is also part of our response to the resource challenge. Our internship program, codenamed Learnable, is the only paid internship program that I know of. So we are training people and we are paying them as we train them. We pay the young crew as we train them. We provide residencies for those without accommodation in Enugu. We provide shuttle buses to aid their logistics. They learn and work in the best environments that I know of in this part of the country, with state-of-the-art facilities like gymnasium, swimming pool, game room, etc. The reality is that our people are indigent. If you say you are arranging or putting together a capacity building program, and you don't figure out how you will also accommodate those people that are going to be coming from my village in Obinofia, who may not have a place to stay in Enugu, who may not have transport to come to Enugu, then you would have excluded the people you really need to attend to. So we built a program that is accommodating everybody, even the very indigent. We have also encountered a lot of people problem. We've encountered people who are still on their journey of value realignment. People who are still at the base of Maslow's pyramid. Some of them come covered in priestly garments. Please be cautious. Don't be deceived. We have suffered huge disappointments and a lot of loss from such people. But we've also learned a lot of important lessons. The big elephant in the room is government. They can destroy all you have labored for in one meaningless move. I'm telling you the truth. To say that government is toxic would be to put it simply. Have you wondered why big long-term transformative projects don't work in the Southeast? Recall Obuaku City project. Geometric projects would have turned around the fortunes of the Southeast. But there are still all kinds of crazy battles around it. Eko Atlantic City has been on in Lagos since the early 2000s. It is still work in progress, preparing Lagos State for the future. It certainly would have been killed by government if it was anywhere in Southeast. I promise you. Dangote's Obajana cement factory and his new refinery in Lagos would have had a hard time surviving successive governments in the Southeast. My advice, please stay away from government if you can. Make sure you comply with all regulatory and statutory requirements. Don't start any project that cannot be completed within the tenure of the administration you started it with. All said, we have learned countless lessons, which I believe has spiced up our story and strengthened us. I'll recount a few of them here. Modern economy is blind to ethnicity. Skill, competence, and character matter. Our individualistic nature and personal drive, which appears to be our key discriminating competence in the past, is gradually becoming obsolete in the new global economic order. Partnerships and network, or what we call ecosystem models, work more today. Iko to Onye should give way to Igwebike. Top global corporations like Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, and I'll add tenece, were all built on partnerships and collaborations. They were all built on partnerships and collaborations. We need to learn how to work with ourselves, with other people. That's how you get synergy and expand and multiply your capabilities. We must learn to work with others. We must begin to convey a disposition that will engender trust and make others feel comfortable with us. Investment decisions should not be emotional. Rewards and returns must also not always be pecuniary. We can also forget financial rewards and think long-term and think about building here and understand that eventually it will all add up and this place will also become viable. No one can build home except us. The Igbo traditional values are ideal for success in any sphere of life. Values like trust, integrity, and hard work. Hard work can never be replaced or in excess. Our human capital remains our greatest asset, not oil, not other natural resources, not political offices. We must work collectively to build our young people. What must be done? We must rethink our business focus. New business models are fast disintermediating us from our traditional areas of strength. I expect that in the next 5 years, or even less, shopping malls like the Palms, Polo Mall, Spa, etc., would have taken over 40 to 50%, if not more, of the transactions that happen in markets like Alaba, Ogbete, Idumata, etc. Besides Next Mall, I don't see any deliberate response from Igbos in commerce. Instead of building shopping plazas, which are essentially glorified open markets, our people should seek partnerships and invest in building real malls. Bearing in mind that our region may not be the most viable destination for most kinds of investments, government needs to be more accommodating and understand that businesses are their much needed partners in progress. We can do a little more with love for one another. There is so much self-hate. So much. Partnerships work more today. I encourage us to do things that encourage healthy competition because it promotes innovation. We need to create new role models with counter-narrative to the youth's helplessness and dependence on fraud and political offices. Rebuilding the Southeast is our responsibility. We must learn from the Jews who in 1948 began returning from different parts of the world to build a Jewish nation that has no defined boundaries at that time. It was a great sense of responsibility and spirit of nationhood that drove these people. There was nothing viable about Israel in 1948. Today, Israel is one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world with highly educated populace running a highly advanced free market system and operates primarily knowledge-based economy. So when we want to talk about Israel, it's not only when Nnamdi Kanu reminds us that we are friends, that we're also Jews. There are a lot of good things they do that we also need to learn from. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll take a few questions. I have a little bit of a chat with him, and then we open it up for audience participation, questions, comments, etc. My first question, Kingsley, is, I said it at my introduction that it was quite contrarian for you to move to the Enugu in 2008, but you've kind of explained it now that it was a search for talent, right? Now, one of the arguments that we hear often against why businesses do not set up in Enugu is that the size of the economy in the southeast is not as big. Yeah, that's one. Two, quality of life in terms of socials. So where would the kids go to school? What will I do after hours? And so on. How do you respond to that? If you were sitting with some investor who's looking to put money somewhere and he raises these issues, how would you respond, not just about Enugu, but the Southeast in general?
Okay, to the first one, I would say that there are actually two ways, to look at it, in terms of the viability of the market size of the Southeast. Truth is, the market size the way it is today, it may be very unattractive to certain kinds of businesses. Besides people who, knowledge workers or people that are in the services space. Certain businesses might not find the market size attractive. But there are two ways to look at it. One way is to say, oh, the market size is small, I will not go, I will wait till the market size becomes substantial enough, then I will go. The other way to look at it also is to say, the market size is not significant enough. However, when we go, we build the capacity, and then the market size becomes attractive, and then it becomes viable. And I think that's the approach we have taken. Now, the second question, which is about the options Enugu offers. If you take the social side, for example, if you're in Lagos, if you want to do Chinese, you have several options. If you want to do Indian, you have several options. If you want to club, you have several options. Anything you want to do in Lagos, there are several options. Now, in Enugu, a young man came to Enugu and made huge investments, a place called The Base. The guy must not have spent anything less than 500 million on that project. But if you touch the regular guy in Enugu and said, let's hang out, he takes you to Nza Street to eat point and kill. Now, you need to eat all the point and kill in the Southeast to raise 500 million that the guy used to make that investment. So, what I also say is that people are willing and people are coming to create that alternatives. Now, we need to also, as a people, begin to try new things. We need to begin to, to change our, to develop appetite for things that are not just those things we are used to. Mama Onye's place in Udi is fantastic. I go there. You see, but when we go to Mama Onye's place 3 times, maybe we should go to the base 5 times so that another person can come and do something similar to the base. It has to be a collective effort.
Thank you for that response. In your paper, there was a line I think I caught that said, basically, I think you mentioned it in 2 places, that we should forget about government. But one can also argue that government has a role to play to attract investment to the region. So as someone who has invested in the region, has had to handle or work with various successive governments, what in your view should be the right model of that interaction between the private sector and investors and the government? What should that look like?
I mean, it goes without saying. It should be a partnership. Government should begin to see itself as a partner, as a development partner. But unfortunately, that's not what I see. Most time, government essentially becomes a clog in the wheel. And it becomes even more damaging when you go through one cycle of government to another one. There is no sense of continuity. And I think this is a problem, with the Southeast. Anambra State alone has more billionaires per capita in Nigeria. You have more billionaires in Anambra than in any other state that I know. Now, if you consider the investments of those billionaires anywhere in the Southeast and compare it to their investments outside the Southeast, you begin to have a sense for what I'm saying. So there must be a reason why there is some sort of apathy towards investing. And even the people who come don't go with very fantastic tales. So government should begin to recognize that investors are partners, even when there are disputes. Dispute is a normal thing in business. And I'll give you an example. There was a time recently, Lekki Concession Company had issues with some sort of uprising in Lagos where people started complaining about the tolls and all that. What Lagos government did was, they went into a conversation with Lekki Construction Company. They paid them several billions to cover their cost. And everybody was happy. Lagos State was happy. Lekki Construction Company was happy. If they had a new business, I'm sure they would take it to Lagos government to do. But I'm not sure the Southeastern governments would handle it the same way. So there is really a lot of need for all of us. Some of us who are close to government, we must begin to, sing this song. We must begin to talk about it. Otherwise, we may not be liberated from where we are.
So some of these billionaires you've talked about, and we find them in all the states in the Southeast, they did not become billionaires by being stupid.
Exactly.
They're smart people. So there must be a reason why they haven't located in the Southeast, and you touched on some of them. My question, therefore, is, has despondency kicked in to such a level that we can't even begin to expect that these people will invest in the Southeast?
But despondency, big time. I mean, recall you and I experienced it. People were asking us, what are you smoking? Why do you want to go and do this project in Enugu? And I'm talking about Igbos. They were saying, why can you Enugu? People have become so despondent and so anti-doing anything here that it's actually very, very challenging, and it has to be given very serious attention.
Is there anything from your experience, now pretend now that you're a pastor, is there anything from your experience that you can preach to these people to begin to heal that despondency, to show that there are actually opportunities in the region? It might be difficult initially, but if we think about all the advantages, creating jobs here, etc., is there something that can be said to folks who might be borderline, should I, shouldn't I, that could then move them to, make that investment?
Well, I mean, definitely. When I was making my presentation, I said that while business decisions shouldn't be emotional, but reward should also not be pecuniary. At the end of the day, we all belong here. We're all going to come in this direction, either dead or alive. This is where we're all going to end up, and we have a responsibility to do our best to improve things here. So for that sense of nationhood, for that sense of commitment towards building the Southeast, that is number one reason. Now, the second reason is that by running away, we will not solve the problem. I believe that if all the people with business interests begin to create activities here, maybe we will have a lot more, we'll gather a lot more crowd to begin to pass the right kind of message to government. And I believe that over time, government will also begin to have the right understanding. But certainly, staying away will not solve the problem.
Okay, so we're streaming live on Urban Radio. And we got a question from Texas, from Namdi, who apparently is watching or listening from Texas. And he said he had tried to start a business. It's about the point you made on collaboration.
Sure.
He had tried to start a business from the States. It did not work. As someone who's done business in Nigeria, what can you say to him to encourage him to try again? I don't know if there's a good answer to that.
I mean, honestly, but he has to try again. He has to try again. The truth is, there are actually a lot of good people around that you can do business with. But unfortunately, most of those good people are usually very, very latent. They are not showy. You have to discover them. The people who give others bad experiences are usually the ones out there. So what I will say to him is to tread carefully, but he shouldn't be despondent, he shouldn't be discouraged. He has to try to do something, because there are lots of opportunities, down here.
Okay, so we're going to open it up to the audience. If we can take the microphone, just your name and a quick comment. Quick.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ozo Kingsley. Thank you, Mr. Kingsley Eze, for that wonderful presentation. And that's what I have to say for now, while I recover from all you've said. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Izueke Diokolo. I am highly overwhelmed from the erudite presentation from Eze. At least for remembering the apprenticeship system of the Igbos and the thrift. It is very, very important. I recall one book I read about the apprenticeship, which is named My Master Settled Me, or Gam Settled Me, where the white man went to buy electronics in Alaba, and he was amazed at the size of what he saw. And I asked the boy, how come do you have this? He said, my master settled me. And that prompted the research he made and found out that money that is moving in Alaba is even higher than Nigerian budget.
Sure.
And on that note, I'm just commending him. And my question is, how do we cope with multiple taxation of the government in Enugu, in the eastern state? How do we cope? Do the young people want to come home and invest?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chukwudi, and I'm an economics teacher. The lecture was quite impressive and instructive. I just want to ask, when tenece was starting, you said you started it with zero capital, zero funding, no connection, no office, everything virtual. How were you able to meet the initial financial challenges you have? Were you issuing promissory notes in economics? That is one, your intellectual capital, if that is the right word. How were you able to convert them to money? Thank you so much.
My name is Uche Aniche. Sake, thank you for a wonderful presentation. I took out two things, and I have a question for you. The first is, Iko Tuonye should give way to Igwebike. And the reference is that we should begin to build more of an ecosystem than trying to be very individualistic. Do you think, I'm trying to connect that with the size of the market conversation that has been going on. Do you think that we are doing enough, considering that we live in a region, so forgive me to backtrack a little, we live in a region that has another region that has 60, by the time you put them together, you have almost 60 million people. And these two regions together, end to end, you can go from Enugu to Port Harcourt, for instance, in less than 4 hours. In fact, if the road is true, 2 hours, 30 minutes. Do you think that we are doing enough justice to continue to talk about market size when you have a population of about 60 million people that can effectively be your market? So do you think that we are being lazy intellectually to be able to see this market size and take the opportunities that exist? That's my question to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Austin Ungu. Thanks for your presentation. But my question goes around, revolves around the issue of market size. And I'd like to ask this: do you think that the lack of depth in the market size is a result of the unsophistication of the people? And if you think that is, then how do we correct it? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Chinyere Ogba. I just moved back to Nugu in 2018 and came back with a dream of starting an IT company that will handle outsourcing of Western contracts here the same way India does successfully. And so I launched in the ability to get contracts isn't my issue. So for me, when talking about market size, isn't really a concern for me because we're now living in a global economy.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at your market is anywhere in the world at this point, and we already have internet. I came back to visit in 2016 and was streaming videos. At that point, I knew I was moving back, because I know when I was here in 2007, I couldn't even upload a picture. It took forever. So once I was able to stream a video in 2016, the plans to move back to Nigeria and inside the East came. And so we moved back in 2018. So my question is, because it's not about market, because I've managed to find contracts in the way that I wanted to, and my goal was to have developers here in Enugu that were working these contracts. And I tried to hire. My problem was the work ethic. How are you addressing the soft skills? You know, when you're doing a lot of consulting engagements, no one has time to micromanage you. I know that I didn't. And so one of my challenges was the work ethic that I needed to deliver on the contracts at the level that I wanted them delivered. I couldn't find the resources here to do that.
Excellent.
So after much frustration, I eventually had to send those contracts to India, and now they're in Serbia. But it's paining me that those contracts, that money is going to Serbia now. And so I'm trying to figure out, how are you finding talent with not only the skill set, but the work ethic that you need to really deliver, so that we can look good when we're delivering
That's an excellent
contracts.
question. Excellent question.
Thank you. My name is Greg Mbadiogo. I'm interested in the Ikotuenye, that phrase, because as a WhatsApp came into my phone, and this young man was showing me a huge estate owned by Indians. I said, these Indians come 3 and 4, 5, they're staying in one room, they raise money together to buy a house, they raise money together, they buy another house, and the more are coming and they are expanding, and now the whole of that vast land is owned by Indians. I think Nigerians do that when we go abroad. You host your brothers for a while, then they find their feet and they go on their way. Why don't we begin to think to pull resources together?
Sure.
The way the Indians are doing.
Sure.
You know, I am worried that you can't go to any part of the world and say that this whole area, this whole beautiful estate, are estates built by Igbos or Nigerians. Why are we not like that?
Okay.
And that's what I find very interesting in the
Sure. Thank you. Next to you, and then we'll come back here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kingsley. You've talked so vastly about all the businesses you own, but I know you through your private estates, where you conceived the lifestyle estates, especially the Millennium in Peninsula area. Well, that place, having worked at Lands Ministry, it was first carved out for ASUTEC, Anambra State University of Science and Technology, but it refused to develop. Lately, it came up for legislative quarters, where during the time of Modu. But when you came in with your private estates, a lot of things started happening. I don't know the kind of approach you rendered there that started attracting developers. But I do know that you have not built anything of your own called estate, but you have really developed the land cooperative system in terms of site and services and a lot of planning. Can you tell us the status of that centenary as of today? Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a gentleman behind him.
Good evening. My name is Chijoke Obodo. Just a brief question. I appreciate Mr. Kingsley Eze for his presentation. I also One of the challenges he mentioned about businesses not flourishing in the Southeast, I think I know one of them, which is a geometric power. This is really a huge problem for the people of the Southeast, the people and of course government not allowing our own to succeed. But my question specifically to you, Kingsley, is Tennessee is a success, a huge success at that. So, and you took off from Enugu and you're still in Enugu. Despite all these challenges, what is or are the reasons for the success of Tennessee? Taking up from Enugu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so let's attempt to answer some of these questions. And what I'll do is I'll group them up. Okay. Yeah. There's a question on startup challenges. How did you handle the initial startup costs? Because you said you started from the BQ, etc. And added to that question was, how did you convert the intellectual property?
Okay, I think in the course of my presentation, I also talked about how we started from what I would call we started on the intellectual or the knowledge segment of IT, advisory, software development. These two things, you don't need to buy any component to provide them as services, okay? The initial stuff we're doing for our clients then was, advisory and then software development. And if you get on an advisory engagement, the moment you get engaged, you receive some sort of payment. So that became what we started running, ourselves with. I think that was exactly what we did, by not going into anything that would require us to spend money. If you also recall, I also said we started, in my BQ, so we didn't need to pay anybody rent. And then we also started small. But of course, the moment revenue started coming in, we started ramping up capacity and started expanding.
Maybe because I had a ringside seat to this episode. Yeah. You also deliberately chose to focus on academic institutions in the Southeast.
Yes.
So maybe a takeaway would be something around identifying like a blue ocean strategy where an area that is not very
untapped, uncontested waters. I mean, and not just that. So when I was making the presentation, I talked about how the academia and government were low-hanging fruits. If you remember at that time, we also did an interesting project for state governments, land registry automation and all that. We didn't need to buy anything to do those projects. Now, but what we did was, if you take the land registry automation for Enugu state government at that time, what we did was we worked with the then Commissioner for Lands, and then we worked with, I think it was World Bank or so. We came up with an idea where we could help them automate the entire process. Don't pay us. We're going to come up with an opportunity for the project to generate money. When the project starts generating money, you pay us. It was the same model that we took to the tertiary institutions. So we'll come to a tertiary institution. The whole teaching and learning experience changes today when you bring in technology. Students are supposed to have, wireless connectivity, or campus network, around the institutions. But the schools don't have money to pay for those things. So he said to them, you know what? We can deploy these things for you, and then in return, pay us a little service charge that will be paid by students once every year, and we use that to offset. So it was a lot of creativity, in the business modeling. But I guess the key point is that we did not go into capital intensive, type programs.
Let's take some questions from online. So there's a question from Obunike Uvuka from Cyprus, Texas. What's the possibility of replicating Silicon Valley in Enugu using Genesis as a fulcrum or starting point? There's a second question related to that. It's from Aloy Anakwe from Barada in India.
Wow.
Thank you for what you're doing. How can we make Enugu the IT service hub of Africa so we can challenge India? I think both of these are related.
Excellent, they're related. So what is unique about Silicon Valley? The ecosystem. So in Silicon Valley, you have the tech startups. You have, Stanford.
Yeah.
Then you have the VCs, the money guys. Every other thing now is ancillary. But these three things, in my view, are actually the things that make Silicon Valley thick. Now, come to Enugu. You have tech startups. You don't even have just Genesis. Today, you have RUO in Nsukka. And there are quite a number of them that are, Uche and Iche are startups out doing a lot of great things. A lot of guys on the C platform are doing a lot of great things, which is what I find very, fascinating, because there is some sort of resonance effect that happens when technology, tech startup, and all those things become, it becomes like a buzz in the town. A lot more people connect to it. Now, so that seems to be working. We have Stanford, we have the academia in Enugu, which we can say represents the Stanford of Silicon Valley. You have UNN, you have ESUT. Remember that sometime in the late 80s or early 80s, Professor Mobison actually produced the first computer system here in Anambra State University of Science and Technology. Remember, the same Professor Mobison, I think he came from either Stanford or MIT. Now, so you have that. Now, you also have our brothers who have deep pockets. So what it means is that if someone can tell them the right story, if someone can show them the money that can come from technology, they will become what the VCs represent in Silicon Valley. A good example I'd like to share is Nollywood. Nollywood was powered by our brothers who didn't even get as much education as some of us have in Onitsha, Azikiwe Road, Aba, and all that. They were the ones that funded Nollywood. And a lot of them made a kill. I can tell you several hotels in Enugu that were built by people who produced Nollywood movies. Several of them, they made tons of money. So what it means is that if we can get our acts together and tell our brothers with the deep pocket the right story and show them the kind of money that they can make, I promise you they will follow the money. They will become our VCs and we'll create our own. It mustn't be Silicon Valley the way it's, because systems should evolve with the peculiar situations in those environments. So it mustn't just be, but we can get those similarities and get them together and have our own variant of Silicon Valley.
By the way, I want to just use this opportunity to thank a few people. There's Michael Oreke here, who started Society for Igbo Professionals, which has become like a hub for people who are thinking about this Akuluono thing. We thank you very much for the work you're doing in that space. Let me then invite Ikechioke to talk a little bit about the size of the market in the Southeast. And why I say that is, there's still some businesses that are offline, so to speak, who are still looking at what we have. How do we convince them that there is market here before they start looking at the market that's online? Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here tonight and to listen to my eminent brother, Kingsley. That was a very nice presentation. I recall in this very room, I think it was early last year, was it? Yeah. I did my own intervention at NKATA, and we talked about reinventing enterprise, Nanibo. At that time, the data I had showed that the whole of the Southeast economies combined GDP came to 9.7 billion naira. That puts it at around $27 billion. The population of the Southeast today is about 22 million people, excluding the Igbos that are living outside of the zone, including those in Lagos or Kano or Kaduna or Abuja, simply because the way the census is done is really based on where you live rather than where you're from. They do ask us where we're from when we want to apply for something in Abuja, I must say. So from that context, if you look at the GDP size I mentioned, 9.7 trillion, about 70% of that is in services. But the interesting thing to note as well, that when you combine the aggregate of all the budgets of the 5 southeastern states, it comes to no more than 10% of the GDP of the of the zone. So that tells you that government itself is really a small component and underscores your point. Now, government ought to be an enabler, bringing people together, organizing us as groups for greater efficiency. Unfortunately, in the Southeast, it has tended to be a nuisance and often blocking investment and frustrating good opportunities. And geometric power is an excellent example. I think that the issue about the market opportunity, do we have the size? For sure. Do we have the spending power? Absolutely. It is just the combination of all of us bringing a little bit back. When we say Akulono, I've estimated that if all Igbo people that have businesses outside of the Southeast bring just 10%, let's consider it as a tithe. Bring back 10% of your business to Igbo land. This Southeast zone will be more economically advanced than the rest of Nigeria. But that depends on one big but. That depends on business collaboration. Just this afternoon, the reason I came late was I was speaking at the Nnewi Investment Summit, where I was talking about business collaboration and explained that with so many businesses, I think large-scale billion-dollar businesses scattered around the Nnewi and across Anambra State, you would expect that at this time they will start coming together to collaborate. One of the biggest challenges to businesses is infrastructure. What's the quality of infrastructure around you? Power is a good example. The managing director of Chikasin was in the room. He was complaining about power. At the same time, the managing director of Century Power, a subsidiary of Obi Jackson Group, was also in the room, and they want to invest in power. Now, it's important that businesses learn to collaborate. The times have gone when if you hide yourself and do it only yourself, so you'll be the only billionaire in town, those times have gone. Today, we have to share resources, leverage on each other to grow faster and to penetrate the world that we live in today. And I'd like to end on this note. We live at the intersection of information technology and artificial intelligence. So when you hear about all the startup companies coming, the focus on fiber, the focus on broadband, that is incredibly important for us to be where we need to be. Our youth need to get onto that bandwagon and be able to access information as quickly as possible. I drove through Nsukka about 3 weeks ago and was amazed at the quality of the road infrastructure that the governor had put in. Now, it occurred to me that despite all these roads, and it's great to have the strategy of building a second city within Enugu State, so that Enugu is not just a one-city state. What I thought would have happened would be to build and lay fiber optic cable across Nsukka because you have a university in that town, and leverage on the graduating students to build an ecosystem that can perhaps create our own Silicon Valley. And that begins to create that learning momentum to bring us to the 21st century world we are seeking. Lastly, last week, the valuation of Apple stock was $1.4 trillion. At that value, Apple was worth more than all the 30 top companies on the German stock exchange, including Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, ThyssenKrupp. Just keep counting. All the major industrial companies in Germany are worth less than Apple. That tells you where the world is going tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name's Michael Ifeanyi Ore. Here. Mr. Ikechioke touched on exactly the same topics I was heading to. So I'll just add to what he said. There are two areas I just want to focus on. Number one is Akuluono. We were in Nnewi yesterday and today for the Nnewi Investment Summit. They took us to, I think, 4 or 5 factories in Nnewi, and we saw the effect of living in Lagos, living in Abuja, and investing in your village, because that is what these men in Nnewi have done. We were in Innocent. Innocent has the first automated auto-producing line in Nigeria, and it was wonderful. He has 7 models he's making at the same time.
just in Nnewi there. We were at Chikasen. Chikasen produces more than 250 different items in the Chikasen factory, employing more than 3,000 people. So it shows the effect of don't listen to the economists, don't listen to the bankers who will convince you, go and invest in Lagos, go and invest in an Abuja, there's infrastructure. There's no infrastructure in Nnewi, but they believe in what they're doing, which is the same thing with what Kingsley has done. Kingsley believed in Enugu, and look at Kingsley today. So I support the statement he made. 10% of what we have outside, can't we invest it at home? Our businessmen in Abuja, our businessmen in Lagos, whatever they have that's worth $1 billion, $2 billion outside, just invest, replicate it, 10% of whatever it is, replicate it in the East. And I think we'll jump milestones ahead. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is, I think the Igbo man, one of our challenges is we're a very competitive people by nature. We compete at a very high level with each other. From village to village, we fight up and down all the time. But you see, competition is good, but the way we are taking competition, in my own estimation, is the wrong way. We are competing to prove who is dominant and superior. But we should be using the competition to prove excellence, not pulling ourselves back, but pushing ourselves forward. Because if we do that, if we see a Kingsley, we want to be better than Kingsley, or better than Kingsley at what he does, not as a person, but because we want to prove ourselves. Sure. Which is what the Americans do, which is what the Japanese do. Competition should be for progress, sure, not for demotion. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the back. Oh, okay.
My name is Obinna Oko. I could have loved to ask some questions, but I think we've had so many questions. So my own will go in line towards comments. And I promised I won't take more than 2 minutes. I'm standing here representing Kingsley's alma maters. His primary alma maters, right from his secondary school. I can proudly say that he went to one of the best secondary schools in Nigeria, Central Special Science School, Odisha. And he went to one of the best universities in Nigeria, Enugu State University of Science and Technology. And I'm an alma mater of both schools. And I want to pick something from his presentation. Well, beautiful presentation. He said, tenece trains people all over the world in the best business schools all over the world. And he said something else, that why they came to Enugu was practically because they discovered that Enugu had one of the best potentials when it comes to human resource. And I can tell you, if you ask him from the depth of his mind, he will tell you that one of the key things that has taken him to where he is now is basically human resource. He said it. He never had money. He said it from his big view. I'm a living witness to that. Human resource is key. Human development is key. Sure. And so what do we do? Akulono is something we should do. We should all imbibe. How do we do that? Is what we should be tackling here. How do we make Akulono have an impact on what we have around us? Sure. He has done that. 2008 was a long time ago. I know why we lack. And our standard number states, billionaires are all from there. How do they bring the Aku to Ono? So one of the things we should take from this, what we have here today, is what will be the impact of the Aku and the Ono and the human resource? If you get that done, I can tell you we'll get to, and he will tell you guys part of the things he was trained about when he was in secondary school and in university. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Well, my name is Henry. I think we're fighting a battle that is very tricky. You're training young people, but you're training them to be tech giants and to raise startups, tech startups. But then, the schools where these people are being built from, they are not having the kind of motivation and inspiration that would make them avoid crimes and that would make them want to go into productive ventures. What I am asking is this: how can we make our schools a lot more inspirational? Because young people see what you're doing as a quick means to make money and join Naira Marley in saying, school na scam, na here it is. So how can we would I say, tap this social capital, that we could harness from our schools to recalibrate the educational system, to make education a lot more inspirational, so that what you're doing to them will be a lot more productive for society. Thank you.
My question goes like this, because I've attended some programs hosted by tech enthusiasts like you, and they tend to support like people who are, tech, like software developers, people who develop software. So my question is, must you be a developer or just a tech enthusiast to be part of what is going on in Genesis here in Enugu? And another thing is how to bring those tech enthusiasts that have different skill set outside just software development. Like I'm a construction, I'm into construction, I'm a building engineer, and I have, passion for bringing in tech into construction, which is still operating on a low level here, down here in Nigeria. So how to bring those people together, like the tech people and then the people who have skill set. Thank you.
Okay. My question is, I've been in the tech company for a while, and one of my biggest challenge is the issue of trust. I thought the problem with Nigeria is knowledge. I have pursued it, I got it. In fact, my own definition of ICT now is integrity, character, and trust. And there was a question that was asked about ethics. I think it was missed also. Here is the issue. We can say we are going to come together. Right now, people are signing contracts in front of shrines because of this same issue. We can talk all day, all night, and everything. People, just two people, I'm not talking about one person, just two people coming together, starting something with the pressure of the government and all, someone will collapse along the way. So I'm beginning to think, is there a way we can focus on trust as a service, integrity as a service, and character as a service? Because this is a big issue. People can have a big dream, they'll come together and they'll form a team. At the end of the day, you see that even if you pump in all the billions of dollars into that team, it will just be lost. We can bring all the money in the whole world and put. I have seen it. I have tried to work this thing, three things. I call it my ICT. Integrity, character, and trust. How are we going to work on it?
Must you be a developer to participate? Okay, you don't have to be a developer to participate in Genesis. But I think the best response I'll give to you is you go to www.genesistechhub.com, and it's very explicit about the requirements and the various programs that we run. The question from Urban Radio about how to be part of ULO program. I mean, reality in the context of this presentation, ULO is essentially a philosophy, of building a startup nation. But if the individual is interested in being part of the project or the things we do, he can reach out to us. Even if it's not the things we do directly, we'll be happy to point them in the direction of the people who do the things they have interest in.
So there's a question about how do we train a new generation of young people
on the integrity ICT thing. Things were not like this. Things were not like this before. There was a time people did not need to go to shrines to sign agreement. I mean, I don't know when you came. If you had listened to the early part of the presentation, I think we dealt with it. We dealt about the value erosion and the things we can do to get ourselves back to when where trust and integrity and all that becomes commonplace again. I really don't know if I have an answer to it, but if we continue to change, if we continue to have role models that that will show that it is possible for people to build straight with others, over time, we are going to have that value reorientation. The other thing is Henry's question about how the mindset of the young ones in the schools can be changed so that they will begin to see that school is not essentially a pass-through, but a program or a process that is actually designed to refine them and get them better people at the end of, at the other side. My response to that is that some of us need to begin to get involved in the academia. My man Pato and I have been discussing this for quite a long time. I know he's very busy, but Patrick, I actually don't think there's any reason why he should not be in one of the classes in either UNEC or ESUT Business School. I teach in ESUT Business School now. It's very exciting. It's not easy. I have to write lecture notes. I have to prepare for lectures. But each time I stand in class, I don't just stand as a faculty. I stand as a role model. I spend at least 10 minutes of my 3 hours telling them things about my life that will encourage them, to think differently and to do things differently. I give them projects that are not necessarily academic projects, but projects with very strong practical components that will get them to learn new things about entrepreneurship and about life, in general.
Public challenge. We will continue our discussion. But, I think that I take two challenges away from tonight's conversation. The first one is on, if we can do 10% of our businesses in Enugu as a tithe, right? It will make us less hypocritical, because I feel a bit hypocritical leading this conversation and I don't have my business in the South. Yeah? So Nkabu, the first challenge. So we have to solve that. And then the second challenge of teaching in school, we will think about that and we'll solve that as well. But there was a question on ethics, which we did not touch because I think his speech touched on it. And we're going to make the speech available so you can read, and if you have questions, you can pick it up with him. But at this point, I'd like to, ask or invite Chief Ben Etiaba to give a vote of thanks to everyone who made time to join us this evening.
The Executive Chairman of Enugu Sports Club, please permit me to stand on the previously established protocols. This is a great evening. I was meant to be in Newi. I was supposed to be part of the investment summit today. But I just thought that if I was to have been there, I'll miss this great evening, the first NKATA for this year. Ike and Michael, you've taught me the very basic lesson that I could have made it to both events. But for me, this one is priority. Priority, because just a little over 2 years ago, I was still the chairman of the club then. We brought NKATA to Enugu Sports Club. We gave NKATA Umewe the home here. I cannot thank the center enough. But the thanks for this evening, the thank you for this evening, really is on behalf of the center. And the thank you goes to a great Igbo man, a man that was honored in Anambra State this Christmas. I missed his installation, regrettably, because I so much wanted to be there. Kingsley, you're a great man. You are a great man. For those of you who never knew Kingsley Eze before this evening, or you knew him but you didn't know the story of Tenece and Genesis, the story he told may sound like fairy tale, but I can tell you that he was actually being modest in the speech he gave. I have personally had the experience of being a beneficiary of what he has achieved in Igbo land. 2 of my sons have gone through the tech hub he set up, Genesis. In fact, Tobenda is here. Tobenda, can you stand up to be noticed and acknowledged? He is one of them. He just finished a program last year and is about to start another one. A graduate of economics doing his youth service in Genesis. Thank you, Kingsley. You have mentored a lot of young ones. I don't know what to say. I lived in England for 27 years, and when I chose to come back to Nigeria, I chose Enugu. And a lot of my friends at the time thought I was crazy. But hey, today, Kingsley and I, thanks to Patrick and what Patrick is doing, we're the ones now giving visas to our friends in diaspora to come back home and to come back to Enugu. And ULO, he is walking his talk. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask all of us to stand up to give this young man a standing ovation. Kingsley Eze. Believe me, this is most deserved. And I tell you this edition of NKATA Umuibe is the most attended NKATA, the biggest audience since we started. Patrick Okibo, Dalo, I can see your mother there. In Patrick, I can tell you that, Mama. And thank you for supporting him and supporting the center and for supporting Enugu Sports Club. And to our chairman, I'm glad to see that you're going to be returned unopposed. To second term unopposed. It doesn't often happen that way, but that's an endorsement of the continuity, an endorsement of the programs that our executive chairman has continued to support and to bring to this great club. And next to him, obviously, is the vice chairman who wasn't here when we started, Barrister Jude Ezegui, the future of the club. Let me use this opportunity before I hand over the microphone back to Patrick to tell all of us that on Sunday at Oakland's Cinema, I think it's 3 p.m., there's the screening of, I'm sure, an award-winning documentary. I don't know if it's won any awards, but if it has not, it will win awards at Oakland's. Please try to be there. Continue to support the center. There's an exhibition, I believe, going on there. And it's not just going there, supporting them and going through YouTube to get the videos of past NKATA series. Ike delivered one months ago. But please, there's a bank account number. There should be one somewhere. Seek out or seek that account number. Donate something, even if it is ₦1. Donate to the work of the center. Thank you.